On their wedding day, they made a murder pact that if either of them ever cheated, that they would have to kill the person they had an affair with. And this disturbing promise ended in multiple people losing their lives. This might possibly be one of the most bizarre cases I've covered in a very long time. You're just not gonna believe half of what I'm telling you. Kelly was a very difficult child growing up. Her parents just couldn't control her, and it got even worse when Kelly became a teenager. Kelly was rebelling, she was using substances and alcohol, and even as a very young teenager, became addicted to the hard substance H. Kelly was really smart though. She went to college and got a degree in psychology and forensic science. And then during college, she started dating an older guy. He was 4 years older than her, named Jason Cochran. Kelly and Jason fell head over heels for each other, but no one approved of the relationship because it was extremely toxic. They were constantly fighting, and sometimes it would even get violent. And a lot of people said that Kelly was actually the aggressor in the relationship, but there was one time that Jason pulled a weapon on Kelly during a fight. So there's clearly issues on both sides. They hadn't actually been together for very long, and the relationship was very toxic, so they could have just broken up, but they didn't. Instead, they got married, and like I said, it was very, very quick. And on their wedding day, Jason and Kelly made a very disturbing promise to each other. They made what they called a blood pact, that if either of them ever cheated on the other one, that the cheater would have to murder the person that they had an affair with. They were married for a couple years, and everything was seemingly okay, but everything went downhill when Jason got a very serious back injury. He could no longer work or really do anything physical. Jason became extremely depressed because he was just home alone all the time doing nothing. And Kelly was very dismissive of his feelings. She mocked her husband and said that he was annoying her. And since Jason wasn't working anymore, Kelly was working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. And when she wasn't working, she was going out partying, leaving her husband Jason home alone. It was while Kelly was going out all the time, leaving her husband home alone, who could barely even move, Kelly began having an affair. Kelly met and started dating the hardworking, divorced dad of 2 children, Chris Reagan. At one point, Jason found out that his wife was cheating, and this sent Jason into an even deeper depression, but Kelly did not care. What started as just a little fling with Chris actually became quite serious. They really fell for each other, or at least Kelly fell for Chris. Because at one point in the relationship, Chris actually got a job offer in a different state, and he planned on taking this job and moving, so he broke things off with Kelly. Kelly was devastated, and then she was angry that Chris would choose his job over her. So what does Kelly do? She runs back to her husband, Jason. Kelly tells Jason that she wants to make their marriage work. And Kelly tells her husband that the only way that they can fix their marriage is if they go through with the blood pact that they made on their wedding day. That if either of them ever cheated, that the person they had an affair with would have to die. The original blood pact was that the cheater would have to kill the person they had an affair with, but Kelly somehow was able to convince her husband Jason to murder her boyfriend Chris. So on October 14th, 2014, right before Chris was supposed to move, Kelly invited him over for one last goodbye. So Chris goes over to Kelly's house, and the second he's inside, Kelly starts to seduce him, which was a part of the plan, and Kelly and Chris actually begin to sleep with each other when Jason burst in and then shot Chris in the back of the head, killing him instantly. Immediately, Kelly began to clean up the crime scene. She drove Chris's car about 30 miles away and abandoned it there. And then Jason used a power saw to dismember Chris's body. Now, what happens next is even more disturbing than that. So if you're eating right now, you might want to stop. Right after Chris was murdered, Jason and Kelly hosted this big backyard barbecue party and invited all of their neighbors. Now, this was something that they had never done before. There was a lot of meat at this barbecue, and some of the neighbors said it was way too much because Jason and Kelly didn't have a lot of money, and it looked like they would have spent over $200 with how much meat was being served at this barbecue party. And a lot of the neighbors said that it really looked weird and that the meat really tasted weird. And although it's never been 100% proven because there's no more evidence because it was served to people,